at the age of 50, I went back to my almost 50, 49. I went back to my childhood days and talked my family into letting me join the Peace Corps, and I went to the Peace Corps for 2 years. I thought it was a wonderful experience. It was a great, I think, sort of what would you call it, a recess for me from what I was doing.
Like a sabbatical?
Yeah, what's that? A sort of sabbatical? Yeah, that's a good word. College administrators never got sabbaticals. Professors do. We worked till we dropped, you know. But anyway, I think that helped me sort of think about what I was going to do for the next 50 years. And serving in the Peace Corps did that.
So what did you do in the Peace Corps? What was like your daily
Well, my
routine?
job in the Peace Corps was to organize, what you had, when I joined the Peace Corps, it was during the time when the conflict in El Salvador was raging, and a lot of Salvadorans were fleeing the war in El Salvador, moving to the United States and moving to adjoining countries. And one place where they moved in very easily was into Belize. Belize is a very small country, and area-wise is about the size of El Salvador, but it only has about 300,000 people. So it was easy for Salvadorans. There was a lot of space there, and most of them were there without papers, as we say nowadays, and many of them were sort of well, they were escaping the war. So I was assigned to set up a program to provide English, set up what do we call it, an ESL program, and anything else that I could come up with that would help the Salvadoran kids and adults to learn English. Belize is officially an English-speaking country, even though a good half of the people do not speak it as a first language. And so I went up to the northern part of Belize and was able to scrounge some volunteers, and was able to get a grant from the Canadians and from another one from USAID to help set up classes in the area where I was working in. I also was able to enlist my friends in Albuquerque to start book drives for children's books, and we got 2 different shipments of books. The first one had almost 5,000 volumes, and we had to find a way to get the U.S. Air Force to fly them to Panama, and then to fly them from Panama to Belize. And then the hardest part was to get them from the Belize airport, which was about 90 miles from my work site, to get them from the airport to my work site and to the area that I was working in. And the only people who could help me get all those books up there would be the Belizean Self-Defense Forces, and they only had 3 trucks, and the officer in charge of the Self-Defense Forces says, well, what happens if while we're taking your books up to Corozal, from Belize City to Corozal, which was 90 miles away, what happens if we get attacked by the Guatemalans? Because you know, Guatemala and Belize have had this conflict. I believe it's settled now that Belize was part of Guatemala, even though the Belizeans have always said that they were never part of Guatemala, but that's another story. But anyway, so we agreed that we would take the books up, and if the Guatemalans attacked, we throw books at them. You know? We would use that as our. But they, you know, we got the books up there, and we were able to provide 18 villages with a nice set of children's books in their little libraries.
So this is really quite a model for describing to people how you can be useful and of service in a very ingenious kind of way. How did you get the U.S. Air Force? How did you get
Well,
and then the book drive here in Albuquerque? That takes tremendous
Well, you know,
organization.
having been, I was almost 50 years old. I'd been around a long time. I knew a little bit about politics in New Mexico, and I had contact with some of the political figures in New Mexico, and I contacted. Well, for one, I got my friends who were all in key positions in the community, like Luis Saavedra, who was president of TVI. I got the superintendent of public schools, with Frank Sanchez, that I had known, and I had been on his board. Different community leaders to organize the book drive, and they were able to, and then we got the TVI to store the books, and then I wasn't here. This was all being done for me by my friends, and they got an old warehouse that TVI had, and they put all the books in there and sorted them and boxed them, and there was a little unknown regulation in the federal government that if the U.S. Embassy could declare something an emergency like medicine, and it was an emergency that the country really needed, it was something that the country really needed, and it could be certified by the U.S. Embassy, and you could find a community group, an official community group, somebody that the embassy could verify that community group was a group like the Rotary Club or something like that. So that's what we did on the other end. We had the request made by several community organizations in Corozal. I helped them file the application to the embassy. The embassy verified that it was children's books were a big need in that area of the country, and then that was used to apply that was sent on to the Air Force. We made contact here with Kirtland Air Force Base, and then Kirtland arranged to have the books moved to Kirtland and then flown. I believe it was a U.S. National Guard, the New Mexico National Guard, that probably flew them to North Carolina. They sat in North Carolina for a couple of weeks, and then there they flew to Panama, and then Panama they were flown to Belize. Now this whole process wasn't something that happened over a week or two. It took, just from the time that we packed the books were picked up to the time they got to Belize, about 5 months. But it was all in process, and it was just a matter of having the space available and the opportunity for empty aircraft that were already doing something else anyway. In other words, there probably, as we know, at one time we had a base in Panama, and aircraft fly to Panama, and they come back empty. So they're coming back empty, so they were going to fly from Panama the books to Belize. Yeah.
So, what was the effect in Belize to have 18 villages now with a substantial number of books?
Well, after I left, well, that was the first load, and but by the time I got back over here, we sent another shipment of books. After that, the idea was started that maybe they ought to contact, organizations, the police ought to contact organizations in Miami, for example, which makes more sense, because you can bring them by ship, if there's space available on ships. These are civilians, ships that would bring books to Belize. Now, much has happened since I left 25 years ago. Belize has developed a lot economically. It had only been independent about 4 or 5 years when I got there. So it was a new independent country. So they were still trying to figure out where they were going.
Now, was this your idea for this service, or did somebody tell
No,
you
that was
they
my
needed?
idea. In the sense that when I was here, I mean, when I've been writing to my friends, thought about having somebody pay to ship books. Try how much it would cost to ship books commercially from here to Belize. It would be very, very expensive. So, and I think what happened, I want to say it was probably Louis Saavedra who suggested we contact Bingham's office, and Senator Bingham's office was the one that said there about alert us to this little regulation, and they got us, I'm almost certain, they're the ones that got us all the paperwork that we needed to do to make the application, to get the books, to get this done. But I wasn't aware that such a regulation existed, and it wasn't until we contacted the senator's office that some bright staffer there brought that to our attention.
So what else did you do in your Peace Corps service?
Well, I also would teach myself part-time. I had some program books that I used. I taught mostly adults, and we had, there are a lot of Canadians that go to Belize in the winter, Canadian winters, they go to Belize. Canada, Belize is a member of the British, what do they call it, the Commonwealth, British Commonwealth. So they have special relations with, where, so if you have a passport, if you're a Canadian citizen, it's easy for you to come down and live in Belize, and vice versa. They had a special setup. And so a lot of Canadians, especially retirees, would come in the winter from Canada to Belize and spend winters in Belize. So I started finding some in different places, and before long I had at one time as many as 15 teachers that were teaching English to Salvadorans. And we worked around, and what was amazing is what the response that we got from the Salvadorans. They really wanted to learn English. And because many of them, most of the Salvadorans that I worked with stayed in Belize, but a big number immigrated to Canada. Because in subsequent trips to Belize, I've run into, when I've gone over to my old site, I hear from relatives and friends of the relatives and friends that they have in Canada. They come back and visit them on a regular basis.
So you are an American, you went to Belize, you worked with Salvadorans, recruiting Canadians.
And Belizeans too.
Belizeans,
yeah.
so it's totally international work that you were doing.
Yeah. Only was on a very small scale. This wasn't like thousands of people involved. It was, I would say, maybe totally in 2 years, we might have had 300 students at the most in the 2-year period. Yeah, you know, what people, I'm a big fan of the Peace Corps. I mean, I think that of anything that I've ever done, I really found the most challenging, because they get you, they basically just tell you, okay, you have a set of skills that you bring, or you think you have a set of skills. We'll train you a little bit, we'll tell you a little bit about the country, they'll teach you what you need to know to survive in the country, and then if you're, depending on your area of expertise. Now, I went out there as an educator. Other people go as nurses, agriculture, whatever it is, but rarely do you have any resources. You don't go over there to head big programs. You don't go over there to tell them how to do it. You try to guide them on how to have them organize their own, their own resources to get a job done. One of the things that you find out that we have, Americans have, that at least you find, in my experience, lacking in many third world countries, is the ability to organize around something. We have, we take it for granted, that Americans are really good at that, and we take that for granted. We know how to organize Rotary clubs, we know how to organize community organizations, we've done it historically, we've known how to do that. Other countries don't do that, they don't know, maybe now they do, but certainly the experience that most Peace Corps volunteers find is that people don't have that culture of organizing to support a particular goal or to, and that was what I think probably helped me more than anything else, is knowing how to organize things.